Episode 203, IRONMAN Arizona with Rebecca McKee. Welcome to the pursuit of the perfect race. I'm Coach Terry Wilson, and with each episode, I bring stories of athletes to you that share their experiences at races in order for you to learn how to have your perfect race. We will hear stories from athletes of all ages, abilities, and races of all distances. So regardless of where you fit in, there's something in it for you. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Now let the pursuit begin. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Pursuit of the Perfect Race. Today I have the pleasure of talking with Rebecca McKee Beaker about her recent race at IRONMAN Arizona that took place on November 18th, 2018, where the temperature on race day was 52 and rose to 73, with the water temperature being an icy cold 61 degrees. She had a time of 10 hours, 13 minutes, and 25 seconds, which gave her a slot for Kona in 2019, and is ready to share her experience about her race at Arizona. Welcome back to the show, Rebecca.
Thanks, Terry. Thanks for having me again.
You're welcome. I think you're going to end up being who I've had on the most, which is pretty awesome.
Oh, well, that sounds fantastic.
Jeez. So how was your train going into Arizona after Kona?
Oh, well, I came home from Kona and proceeded to become sick almost instantly within a couple of days of returning, and fought that cold. It was a pretty bad virus. Ended up being a sinus infection, ended up having laryngitis. You and I had talked, we were going to talk and had to change that session between the two of us because I had no voice. So it was a good 14 to 17 days of absolutely no training. Ended up on some antibiotics to try to clear the sinus infection. And yeah, I was a little anxious to go almost 3 weeks after Kona with no training.
Wow. So you were kind of nervous going into Arizona?
Not so much nervous as much as anxious about not having, being sick isn't rest. So, I really needed that rest the week after the race. And then the goal is to kind of ramp up a little tiny bit the second week after the race, and then the third week to do some load, and then, to kind of ramp down. So instead I spent 14 days sick, and then still needed to do a recovery week, and then a little bit of ramp up. So it really changed the schedule quite a bit. And yeah, I didn't feel as on my game, I suppose, like I did last year going into the same race, doing the same schedule.
So how did you and Cliff attack this recovery plan and also the build-up going into Arizona?
Well, basically we had no build-up. We kind of just stayed in maintenance mode, and Cliff kept me pretty sane. It was pretty funny. I wrote him at one point and said, hey, I need to start ramping up. I want to change this workout on this day. I want to do, I'm going to add this. And he wrote me back and he was like, seriously, I'm not having this conversation with you. You're going to rest. And I was just like, okay. And then, a couple hours went by and I was like, all right, I'm being insane. And wrote him back and I was like, thanks for being the best coach ever. And, my athletes do stuff like that to me all the time. And I always think I don't do things like that. But here I was a little insane myself. So, yeah, it was just a matter of maintaining and making sure that I actually did get fairly healthy before the race. And I did feel healthy, which I'm sick again. So it's kind of a bummer to come out of the race and literally 2 days later get sick again. So I've been going on this about 8 days now. So probably didn't completely get over it.
Wow. So I know we talked last time about Kona and how you were very nervous and anxious going into that race, and it wasn't really the best race experience you've had there. How was that energy going into Arizona? Did you carry some of that same energy, or did you kind of leave that at the door?
I did carry a little tiny bit more than I probably wanted to. I think because of, being sick for almost 3 weeks. But I really did let a lot of it go and just spent a lot of time and energy telling myself, hey, you just finished 7th in the world and you really enjoy the course in Arizona, and just tried to look at it a little less. I think the thing about Kona is you feel like it's that once in a lifetime opportunity. Even if you've had it more than once, You never know if you're going to make it back. You want to do so much on that day. It's such a big deal. Whereas an event like in Arizona, you know, there's another chance to qualify for Kona this year. There's another Ironman, you know, those types of things. So I think that pressure on those levels was a lot less.
Wow. So going into Arizona, we're not really going to talk too much about your training and lead up. We've talked about that in previous episodes. We've talked about all the fun stuff with nutrition, your life-work balance, and other episodes. So if you want to reference that with her, you can go and listen to those episodes. We're not going to sit here and beat that dead horse. So going into Arizona, I know that you left Kona, you went back to Alaska for a few days, and then you went down to Arizona. Is that right?
No, I actually was in Alaska for almost a month. It was a little bit short of a month, and then I headed to Arizona. So I was in Alaska from the 18th of October to the 12th of November, and then I headed over to Arizona.
Okay. So you got to Arizona almost a week before the race?
Right.
What'd you
And
do?
actually, it was Tuesday. I flew over, I believe, the 12th. That was a Monday. Yeah. Okay. You're right.
Okay. So why did you want to get there so early?
Oh, actually, I usually get there much earlier than that. I would have been over earlier had I not been sick. So I like to be at that venue and take the time to get a little more acclimated to the weather because it's usually pretty cold in Alaska. And also, once I head home from Kona, I'm all indoors again, indoor running, indoor swimming, indoor biking. So I like to get over to Arizona and get outside again, make sure all my gear is working, you know. So, yeah, that was actually a little bit later than when I usually go down there for the race.
Nice. So how many times have you done Arizona?
This will be 15, 16, my fourth time.
Oh, wow. So it's definitely not a new course for you.
No, it's not. And 2015 was the first year I did it after I DNF'd at Whistler. And so I've actually gone to Arizona every year since, right after Kona, and have been able to qualify for Ironman Kona at this event. So far, knock on wood, it's been a really good strategy.
Wow. So going into Arizona this time, you get there on Monday. What all are you doing before the race on Sunday?
Well, unfortunately, it's a red-eye flight, so you leave at, Monday night, Tuesday morning. You get in Tuesday, and you're just obliterated. So I spent most of Tuesday sleeping and then put my stuff together. And then, you're pretty close to the race, so it's just a matter of making sure all the gear is working, get out on my bike a couple of times, no more than an hour, 20, 30 minutes of running, and just trying to get used to the temperatures in the morning because it's pretty cold there in the mornings.
Right. So I know we've talked a little bit about your bike in the past, but you have a Diamond bike. And how is the setup of traveling with this? And is it that much different riding a Diamond that doesn't have a main stem on it versus riding this bike? What is this like for you?
Well, I can tell a significant difference. And I think until you ride one of these bikes, it's hard to explain. Something that's kind of weird about it is there's some float in that top tube. So it almost gives you a little bit of suspension. And it's a little bit freaky at first because of that vertical motion of the bike moving up and down and being able to feel it. But in the wind, especially crosswind, it's night and day compared to any other bike I've ridden. And the aerodynamics of this bike, they're pretty significant. So with a disc wheel, it's a pretty fast bike.
And that's what you're going to use in Arizona, right?
That is what I used in Arizona. So the Diamond, and then I used the Reynolds disc and the zip wheel in the front.
Wow. So how long have you been on a Diamond?
I believe that I got the Diamond in 2015 when I was in Arizona. So I started riding it in 2016.
Wow. And you've never looked back?
No, I do have my Trek still. I still have that bike on the trainer at home, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to get rid of that speed concept. It's such a good bike, but I'm pretty committed to staying on that Diamond at this point.
Wow. So how long have you actually been in this sport? I know I don't want to get this wrong, but you've been in this sport for a while now.
I'm going to be going on 19 years here in 2019.
Oh my goodness.
Right? It's pretty crazy.
So of all the years that you've been in the saddle, literally, how did you actually find the right saddle for you?
I got to tell you, I'm one of those people that's just had so many saddle problems and, saddle sores. And I mean, sores, I know a lot of people don't talk about this stuff. It's so taboo, supposedly. But I mean, just sores that I've had to go to doctors for and lots of, leg cramps and things like that. And the ISM has really made a difference for me. But I definitely think that Aaron Ross, my fitter, is the one that just really got me in the right position on my bike, and utilizing the seat that I'm using with ISM. Just this year's been night and day compared to any other year. It's been pretty awesome to feel so good on my bike.
Wow. I mean, I've been using the same saddle for, 3 years now, and I like mine, but I've started to have a little bit of discomfort. Do seats actually wear out over time?
Yes, absolutely. I probably change my seat every 18 months now.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, especially the number of miles you're putting on them. Think about, it's kind of like shoes, right? Once they're exposed to air, once you get them wet, sweat, they sit out in the sun during transition, things like that. All of that stuff breaks down that cushioning. And, people think they can ride their seats forever, but if you look at your old seat and compare it to a brand new seat, you'll see the wear.
All right.
Pretty impressive.
Wow. So as you're in Arizona getting ready for this race, you're getting a few training runs in. How is your body feeling going into this race?
Really good, actually. With all the downtime, I had kind of that cobweb feeling, but besides that, I have confidence in my training and what I can do. And I felt really actually ready, before the race. Like a couple days before the race, I thought, I think I'm going to be able to pull this thing out and get this, get a really good day out of this. And also the bike ride in Kona kind of gave me, I'm still pretty new to the Ironman distance. Arizona was my 10th Ironman, and since 2013. So, I've only done a couple a year kind of thing at the most, and some years not a couple. So I kind of starting to build more confidence in being able to do more on the bike and be able to, and trust that I'll be able to get off the bike and still run well. So I had a lot of confidence in the times we were shooting for on the bike course in Arizona after that great bike ride in Kona.
Right. But I feel like that also comes with knowing your body a little bit more and also monitoring your power a little bit more as well.
Absolutely. I agree. Yeah. And we've been really conservative. I have structural issues and always worried about the run. And so we've been fairly conservative during the Ironman biking section to be, to make sure I can still do a really good Ironman run. And because I don't run more than 15 to 17 miles distance wise ever, there's a lot of, what's going to happen questions, but I'm kind of getting over that and starting to have more confidence in knowing what's going to happen and knowing what my body can do.
Right. So for Arizona, did you want to have the same kind of bike strategy going into the race? I know at Kona you had the every 26 miles where you wanted to kind of get on it a little bit harder, or 28 miles, sorry, not 26, where you want to go from 56 to 28 to 84 pretty hard, but then kind of relax the last 28.
No, that's not how we did this at all, because Arizona is a 3-loop bike course. So it's more about what's going on those loops and how much traffic is on each loop. And we haven't discussed this yet, but there was kind of a snafu at the beginning with the swim. And so the bike course is really, I think a lot of people probably ride it the same way. They break it into 3 loops. So the first loop we wanted to kind of, ease in, get our legs under us, because it's only 17 and a half miles out to the turnaround. And then you come back, they're like 37-mile loops. And so 37, 38-mile loops. So the second loop was where, it's going to pick up the watts a little bit, and then, to hopefully finish the final loop a little bit stronger as well. So to incrementally get a little bit faster. And then on the back half, coming back on the last loop to kind of let up a little bit and, get ready for the run.
Okay. So going into the actual week of, when did you go to check in and the briefing and all that fun stuff?
I went in Thursday morning as soon as they had it opened and was able to get in and get everything. And I've been to many of the briefings. They have them at many different times of the day. So I just kind of was walking around the expo and listening to the talk while they were, it's right by the expo. So it's super easy to listen to it and do other things.
Right. I mean, and they're not really going to be putting out much stuff that you don't already know.
Right. They changed the swim this year.
Right.
So they mimicked the swim from the 70.3. And truthfully, I'm kind of still in the middle of the road on what I think about it. I first off, I'm pretty confident the swim was long. All of the pros times were 30 seconds to 40 seconds longer. And that's my slowest swim there ever, as well as I actually beat my swim time in Kona without a wetsuit at Arizona. So my swim in Arizona was slower than my swim in Kona with a wetsuit. So that kind of says something about the course. There's something not adding up there. And also the new design of the course with the swim buoys coming back, they were impossible to see. In fact, I don't believe they were there. There's a lot of people that said they never saw them. I didn't run into anyone that did see them, but we just really, I was swimming towards a bridge. I was like, well, I know the swim exit's near that bridge, and that's what I did. But there were people everywhere. It was really confusing. And then once we got to the swim exit, they actually made us swim back out towards the middle, turn around a buoy, swim back in. It was really complicated and confusing, and I don't know how I feel about that at this point. Also, it changed how long transition was, and it was really ridiculous. The run transition that they made us do was a quarter mile long in bare feet on concrete, and it was 49 degrees when we got out of the water. So I think that's pretty ridiculous, especially when we used to get out of the water straight across from transition, and we could just run around and be in transition and get, our feet off of cold pavement and stuff like that. So, yeah, I'm a little bit confused. No one really could tell anybody why they changed the swim. So that was a little bit confusing as well. But the worst part about the swim was that they set up the rolling start the way they always do. But instead of having a corral where you could walk along the side and get into where your time was, they just packed everybody in. And when I got to the swim start, I was in the 2+ hour swim group. I could not get to the front. There were so many of us trying to get up into our swim times. By the time I got to the front, I was in the 1 hour and 40 minute swimmers, and the race had been going 25 minutes. So
from a safety standpoint, if an athlete is here for the first time and they're nervous and they're having a panic attack about the swim, and that person has a heart attack, not saying it should happen or anything, but if it does happen, how can paramedics or anybody get to that person quickly and effectively?
Well, this is just the corrals to get into the water. So I think, once we got in the water, there was a ton of safety personnel out there. I saw lots of people out there, but I will say that if they're going to do rolling starts and they're going to do them the way they've done them at other venues, or even the way they do them at marathons, have the ability for the racers to be able to get into where their swim starts are. The woman that I was racing started the race 26 minutes before me. So that
doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't you have side entry to the corral?
Yeah, you're asking the same questions we were all asking. It made no sense. And we were all trying, there was many of us, there was probably 15 to 20 people around me that were all going to swim an hour and 5 to an hour and 15 minutes. And we were trying everything we could to move forward. And we just could not. People were actually going out of the corrals, going around, climbing up over the fencing, which was way too tall for me. I couldn't do it. And jumping into the areas that they were supposed to be swimming in, which is super dangerous. Like, it's wet and cold, and they're not, there's no high chicane fencing. So it was pretty ridiculous. And I think not the best planning on Ironman's part in regards to making sure people could get into the corrals where they thought they should. Also, the walk to the swim start was almost 8 minutes, but special needs was in the exact opposite direction, almost 4 minutes. So I don't think people understood that they were going to need 15 to 20 minutes to get to the swim start in the morning. So it wasn't planned well. They didn't do a very good job of the logistics of the morning. And for me, I ended up in the water with very slow people. I was swimming over a lot of people. I was swimming through a lot of people. And also, by the time I got out of the water and on my bike, I spent a lot of time passing hundreds and hundreds of people on the bike. And honestly, it kind of worked out on a certain level for me because it was a lot less stressful. Nobody around me was going to be drafting me. I wasn't dealing with anybody drafting around me because no one around me, I had not one person pass me on the bike.
Wow.
I mean, when you're 30 minutes behind all the top people, they're just gone. So I was kind of out there by myself. By the time I got into the middle of the second lap, I pretty much rode the entire rest of the race almost with no people around me. In fact, by the end of the middle of the second lap, the only people that were coming around me were the pro men.
Wow. That's pretty awesome. So to back up a little bit here, what are you doing from a nutrition standpoint the day before the race?
I'm just the same, I don't try to change much of anything. I'm pretty bland. I, chicken, do some French fries. I have a couple cookies. I'm pretty low key. I have lots of stomach issues, so I work hard to not put myself in a position to have any GI issues on the run, mainly.
Right. So the day before the race, you go and check your bike in at transition, get an idea of where everything is. What was your first impression of how they laid transition out in comparison to the last year and the year before?
Well, besides the swim stuff, they do a fantastic job with transition there. It's really laid out well. It's really obvious what's going on. I think that they do a really good job of getting the AWA athletes up close to the exit of the bike. And I think that the volunteers at this venue are pretty awesome as well. They do a really good job of making things really easy. So, they have the change tents, and I think they do a great job at this venue.
Wow.
That's why the swim thing's a little bit disappointing, because it's always been a really nice little tight bubble of where everything goes on. And it's spectator friendly. It's fantastic where, you can see everybody get out of the water. They run to transition. Then you can see everybody get on their bikes. They head out, they come in. Everything happens in this little area. So that swim change made a significant difference on that level too.
Right. So you didn't change kits the day before the race, did you?
No. I actually used my new Roka, and I'm really, really pleased with this new kit. It's very fast. It's very tight. It stayed tight, wet. I'm pretty impressed with it.
Wow. So I know we haven't mentioned it before, but I know you're using the Cork power meter here. How often do you have to change the battery or charge the battery on this?
Well, I always check it. I never want to have that excuse of a bad battery or, something dying on me. So pre-race, I always put new stuff in, no matter how long it's been, and always check the charge. But they go pretty long. I mean, when I'm in not race mode, sometimes I don't even think about it. So when I come into race season, I'm like, hey, maybe I should check that thing. So they're pretty awesome, actually.
Nice. So Cork is all based in the crank versus the pedals or in the hub. How has this worked for you? I know you've used power meters before of different kinds. What is this like, and do you like it more or less than the other ones?
I do. I really believe they're more accurate than anything else that's out there. And I think that Quark's been around quite a while. They've been doing, they do a really good job of staying up on technology. And, I have power pedals as well. But I just think that for me, the Quark is the right avenue.
So whenever you actually get to leave transition and you get your dinner in, what time are you trying to go to bed?
I think I went to bed around 9, but probably didn't actually get to sleep till about 10:30. I mean, I didn't sleep very well this trip, and I think it was just time zone change and red eye and things like that. So I was actually just, anytime I felt like taking a nap or anything that week, I would just lay down, and I just figured I'd rather get some sleep than trying to force myself to sleep at night.
All right. So you get up on race day. How is your anxiety here?
I always kid around that you kind of have that buildup going until the gun goes off. But I had a couple of athletes, actually 3 athletes racing at the venue, and one of them actually won his age group as well, Bob Smith. So I was pretty stoked about that. And another guy, Joel Holman, who's also a good friend of ours. So I knew I was going to be meeting up with him, and he and I were going to get in the water together. I knew I'd never see him again after we got in the water, but it's kind of nice to have that buddy to hang out with before you get in. And so I kind of had a little bit of ease knowing that there was somebody there.
Okay. So as you're getting ready to approach this race, the water is going to be cold and a lot colder than what it was in Kona 3-4 weeks prior. How was your mindset with this cold ass water?
Well, I wasn't really happy about it, to be honest. The air temperature at 49 and the water was at 60. So I knew the water was going to be warmer, but it causes a lot of anxiety about what's going to happen when you get out of the water on the bike. And it wasn't going to get up into the 60s until around 11 a.m. And that was one good thing about getting in the water 30 minutes late, was that the sun came up by the time I got in and the temperatures came up. So I actually got like a 3 or 4 degree temperature jump just from being stuck, not being able to get in the water. And that might have actually helped me a little bit. And, the bummer about Ironman, I don't know why they do this. It's confusing to me. In fact, it's awesome that they just stopped doing this at Lake Placid, but they don't allow you to get your special needs bags back. And so, I think Ironman would have a lot more success if they allowed their athletes at these types of venues where it's going to be really cold and the temperatures are going to change, to be able to drop gear somewhere and be able to get that gear back. I think they'd have a lot less DNFs. They'd have a lot less medical issues if people could, put a coat in a bag, knowing they're going to get their $200 coat back, or, on the run, they could get a coat out of a bag if they needed it. But people don't do that because they don't want to lose their gear because they can't get their special needs gear back. Right. So for me, it's the same thing. I don't want a bunch of gear out there that I'm not going to use, but I know I'm going to be cold. So I had to really prepare for that. And I use toe warmers. I have hand warmers. I have a hat. I have gloves. I have arm warmers. All of that stuff's in my transition bag. And this year I ended up using the toe warmers, the hand warmers, and the arm warmers. And then, as I have in years past, I throw the arm warmers away on the 3rd lap. I just throw them away at an aid station and hope that they find a new good home, because, gear's not cheap, but I can't carry that stuff. I don't have anywhere. My suit's skin tight. And so it was definitely, I think the biggest thing on my mind is how cold the water was going to be and how cold it was going to be when we got out of the water. My feet hurt so bad up until about 2.5 laps into the bike. I mean,
wow.
Just cold water and then the cold concrete running.
Right. So were you wanting to use a full sleeve here? I think I
saw
a picture
absolutely.
of a full sleeve. And did you have the neoprene cap on as well?
I had full sleeve and then I double capped. So I had one of those thick silicone caps, and then I had the cap that they gave us from the race. And I almost wore swim booties. It's just that I don't practice with them, and just decided that I didn't have enough experience wearing them to really understand you know, how they were going to affect me. So something I'm going to start actually playing around with is my Blue 70 swim booties to see if they're helpful, because yeah, it's hard to be cold. It's, an hour and 11 minutes in 60-degree water,
Right. So you've been in the sport, you've been in the sport for many years. What are some tips that you use to put on a wetsuit?
Well, the biggest thing is I always use Glide on my wrists and my ankles, and that's about it for me. I don't have a lot of problems getting into mine. I've had to do plastic bags in years past, but I don't know, the new Blue 70 is such a nice suit. I mean, it just fits like a glove, goes on so easy, comes off so easy. So maybe I'm just a little spoiled with a really nice wetsuit.
Lucky. I haven't found one that fits like that yet, but I'm also a little bit bigger than you, like body composition wise. So you get into the water late the morning of. How does the swim go for you?
Well, it went pretty well. I mean, besides, swimming through a lot of people, it's kind of funny. I had to keep telling myself during the swim, you are not swimming that fast. You are just not around fast swimmers. And had to keep telling myself, you need to keep moving. Don't draft any of these people. You need to, it was kind of funny because you don't have a sense of how fast you're going when you're in the water, only your work effort. And there were a couple of times that I had to tell myself, hey, none of these people are helping you get to a finish line. You need to keep going. And it's a hard swim because you can't see anything. You can't see your hands. So you're literally running into people before you realize there's somebody in front of you or beside you. So I was feeling a little bit bad about that because these are all people that are trying to have a day and trying to have their own experience. And before you know it, you're running, I'm the one running into people. Usually people are running into me and taking me out. And this time I'm the one running over people, and it's certainly not purposeful. And told one guy I was really sorry and that I didn't see him. And he was like, you're fine. And I'm like, oh, super sweet of you. But yeah, it's just it's one of those venues that you certainly need to have that rolling start set up to where the people that are getting in the water based on their time are getting in on their time, because you can't see each other out there either. So yeah, it was definitely a different experience for me.
Right. So going into this race, you knew that Rochelle was going to be there, right?
Yeah.
So, and you knew that she was going to be your biggest competitor to get your slot.
Well, her and another gal named Carolina Ponce, who I don't know what happened with her, but she did not show up. So those are the girls that have been to Kona with me before recently that I saw on the start list. You never know if somebody else is out there that, showed up for the day. But the thing is that you kind of hope to always start close to each other so that you know what's going on. And on the podium, she even asked me, she's like, did you do that on purpose? And I was like, no, not at all. So by the time I got off the bike and started running, she was at like mile 4.5 on the run.
Oh, wow. So
yeah,
like the only difference between this was basically where y'all started. And did you even think of this where you were going to be like, okay, well, I'm really not going to know where the heck I am all day?
No. And I don't think any top competitors go to these races without people out there that tell them what's going on. So when I got off the bike, I knew I was in first, and I knew I was in first by almost 9 minutes because there were people near transition that I knew and people that I didn't know, but that know who I am, that were giving me information, like, hey, you're in first place. And you're like, okay. And, then you've got people that, I had a couple of friends out on the course and my husband was there and, they're like, you're 9 minutes. You're 9 minutes ahead. So I knew I had a buffer, of about nine minutes or so.
Right.
Off the bike, but she was running strong. I mean, by the time I got to mile 2 and, had a friend out at mile 2 that told me a split out there, and I can't completely remember, but I remember thinking, wait a minute, 2 miles ago I had 9 minutes. Now I have 7. What are you talking about? So at that point I was trying to do some math. And by the time I got to mile 5, another gal that I knew that was out there was telling me that that the gal in front of me was running, 20 seconds a mile faster. So, I was doing quick math and I was like, holy cow, I got to get moving. But, I was kind of moving top speed, but also I didn't know at the time, I didn't know until I finished, but like I said, she was almost 4 miles ahead of me. So, all of those splits were coming at
a 28-minute delay.
Right, exactly. So when she ran up and down the hill, everybody's like, oh, you're taking time out of her. And in my mind, I'm like, I don't think I am. She's probably on the hill, whereas I'm back here at, mile 6.5. She's at 10 now, kind of thing. And so, people are like, oh, she's running 9-minute miles. And I'm like, I don't think she is. I think she's running up a hill,
Yeah.
So it was kind of tricky on those levels. But yeah, it was definitely complicated that, everybody told me after the race that they thought I was in first and then this other girl would be in first. And I was like, well, the thing is she was physically ahead of me, but virtually I was ahead of her.
Right. And that's so weird to think of because of how the rolling start happens.
Right. And I actually beat her out of the water as well by almost 5 minutes. So,
but she was still ahead of you.
Right. Exactly.
Which so weird.
Right. So she got out of the water in first place. And then half an hour later, I got out of the water in first place.
Wow. So to kind of go into the bike ride here, are you using socks at all?
No socks.
Do you regret that decision?
I do not. It's just too hard to get them on when your feet are wet and cold.
Wow. So you get done with the swim in roughly an hour and 12.5 minutes. You get up and go down through transition. It's cold, wet concrete. Did you feel like it was slippery here?
It absolutely was. And they had people all over telling you to slow down, to walk, that it was slippery, and it was slippery. It was really very dangerous. I don't understand the logic behind why they did this. And if they're going to have us do that, they should have put carpet down. I saw one person go down. It's, that's a way to ruin your entire day. And when you're that cold, that's a great way to break something, when you're so stiff and you go down. So I actually walked a little portion of this downhill because, it is wet and it was slick and it was so cold. You couldn't feel your feet.
Gosh. So you get in the changing tent, you're getting your wetsuit off. What else are you doing to prepare for the bike ride?
Well, they had wetsuit strippers, which was fantastic. And where they had them was fantastic. It was really nice. Usually they strip us right out of the water and then we have to run to transition, but the run's really short. This year, I was really worried they'd have those strippers right outside the water. I wasn't going to take my wetsuit off and run 1/4 mile. So it was really nice. The wetsuit strippers were literally right in front of transition. They were perfect. I ran right up, got my suit off, and then went into transition. The volunteers were fantastic in there. I was really worried about what the tents would be like being so far back in the pack instead of up where, with the front folks. And I just ran right in. I had a chair. The volunteer was awesome. She helped me get my arm warmers on. Like, she literally put my arm warmers on while I was moving around, putting my shoes on. She was really awesome, super patient. And yeah, I was in and out of there, I think, as fast as I probably could have gone with how cold I was.
Wow. So I know a lot of people use lube on the bike ride for 112 miles. Are you using anything?
Yeah, I can't live without the folks at Squirt Lube and their barrier balm. It's actually just changed my life. They're probably one of my only sponsors that I've approached and said, hey, you need to be working with me because your product changed my life. So yeah, that stuff's been fantastic for me and made a huge difference. And it's kind of funny. It goes on really sticky, but once it gets dried, it makes this really great barrier, and it's saved a lot of my parts. That's all I have to say.
Well, I mean, I talked with this one guy from Kona as well, Jared, and he swears by the stuff. Like, yeah, he says it's expensive, but it's worth every dime.
I got to tell you, I'm glad to be sponsored by them, and they take really good care of me, but I would absolutely spend the money on this product, and I have for, and it lasts a long time, but yeah, it's made a huge difference for me.
Wow. So are you putting that on in transition?
No, I actually get all that stuff on before I get in the water and put it on pretty, liberally. And I actually use it on my feet a little bit as well, and on the back of my neck. Yeah, it works really great for chafing areas, blisters, things like that. So it's waterproof. It doesn't come off. So, I mean, even at the end of the day, when I come home and take a shower, I can still feel the stickiness of it. So it's definitely stuff that lasts all day, especially in an Ironman, is really good.
Wow. So you get out on the bike ride here. How does the bike ride go for the first 20, 30 miles?
Well, besides the massive amount of people that, I haven't been on this course that far into the race. I mean, there were people finishing their first lap almost when I was coming in, out to start my first lap. If you think about it, I'm an hour and 10-minute swimmer. Anybody that was in the water 30 minutes before me, especially the pros. So about mile 10, the top pro men started passing me. So I was kind of like, what? That's not usual for me. And, but I think I had just enough gap that I never really saw any age groupers from, that were ahead of me. And like I said, I literally had, the only people that passed me on the entire ride were the pro men. No pro women came around me, no age group men. So I spent a lot of time. I stayed away from all the aid stations. It was pretty crazy. Lots of age groupers like stopping, parking their bikes, getting stuff from the aid stations, going to the bathrooms. So I just was like, that's just a danger zone.
Wow.
So I probably spent the first lap just keeping my head on a swivel and paying attention and making sure that nobody, rode into me or that I was able to get around people. I mean, just lots and lots of people.
Yeah,
the second lap was a lot there.
Yeah, with this, I mean, how are you avoiding all the wrecks and whatnot at the aid stations, but still monitoring your nutrition and your hydration at the same time?
Well, I pretty much have everything I need on my bike for this event. It's not hot. I'm a camel. I usually don't need more than 2 to 3 bottles an entire race for an Ironman. And I dilute my nutrition as I go. So I actually got a bottle at the middle or at the turnaround of the third lap. And that's when so I didn't need anything at any of the aid stations prior to that.
Oh, wow. So as far as your nutrition and hydration setup, I know you're using Scratch with Carbo Pro, and then you're using some goo and some more goo on the run. How is this going as far as getting what you need in? Because you increased the calories from Kona to 250 calories an hour.
Actually, perfect. I have to say that this was probably the best I've done with nutrition in an Ironman ever. So I'm starting to get that sorted out, keeping it from, that stomach issue point, but still getting enough fueling in. I'm spreading it out a little bit more. Doing the goo chews, like 1 chew every 15 to 20 minutes instead of trying to choke down 3 every 30 minutes. And the mix of the Carbo Pro and Scratch in my Torhans is really working out well for me. And I just, grab the bottle that I have in the back and, fill that Torhans up really quick when I need to dilute it. And it worked out really well. I'm really pleased with it for this race.
So how many goo chews are you trying to get in on the bike?
Basically one of their 8 packs an hour. So it's like, 1 to 2 every 15 minutes. But, basically 6 to 8 an hour. I'm probably averaging more like 6.
Okay. So how are you holding all of this on you, being that your Roka suit is all like skin tight?
Well, my Dark Speedworks bento box is pretty awesome. It's an aero box, which is really cool. And it sits right on the top of my bar. And I just dump all those little pellets, those little goo chew pellets in there, and super easy with the double zipper to get in and out of that thing. So I'm really been pleased with that little box. And so I carry everything on the top of the bike there.
Nice. So as far as the quality of the road here, how is the road quality here?
It comes and goes. There's some really great sections of the road up to the beeline But, you know, coming into town around the college and the turnaround near the transition, it's that, you know, heat heaves, you know, the asphalt cracks and heat heaves. But for the most part, it's a pretty nice ride. There's some chips still. I mean, we change surfaces a number of times, but it's not a course that makes me hate my bike.
Right. So with the aid stations that you are using, do you have enough time to get what you need and discard what you don't?
Yeah, I just used one aid station, so it was super easy for me. And I just went, you know, due to the number of people that were at them, I actually rode to the back of the aid station and hit one of the guys on the very back end. So I threw my trash away at the front and then went around to the back and grabbed a bottle from a guy standing out there. He actually looked a little surprised. My guess is not too many people were taking stuff from him at the end there, but I just I yelled out to him and pointed at him, and he was pretty goofy, and told him thanks, and he was pretty awesome and did a good job. So yeah, just won water the whole time, and then I just used that to dilute the rest of my nutrition down.
Wow. So as far as the bike ride goes, is there anything you'd want to tell someone to be aware of that hasn't done this bike course before?
I think the biggest thing is we actually had a headwind the first lap that was pretty surprising. There was supposed to be no wind. And so, you know, there's always, I mean, I was going 16, 17 miles an hour on the way out, but I was going 33, 34 on the way back. So I think the best advice I can give on this course is, you know, don't chase the wind. It's one of those courses where you work too hard fighting the wind out, and then you work too hard using the wind on the way back. So I had to be really conscientious about that on the first lap. And I thought the wind was going to get worse. So I was really pleased on the second lap. It changed directions. It was coming from the side. That was kind of confusing. And I was just kind of like, all right, well, now we're going to deal with a side wind. So it was a more, you know, 21, 23 mile an hour on the way out until the hill, and then, you know, 25 to 28 on the way back. And then the third lap, we had no wind. So I was just like, what? You know, so I guess my best advice to people is to recognize that 112 miles is a really long way, and that the weather and temperatures are going to change. And, you know, I think Arizona is typically a windy course.
Okay. So I know you only weigh less than 120 pounds and you're using a disc. Did you not feel like that was going to overpower you?
No, not at all. You know, I think there's a lot of myth out there about disc wheels. The reality is all of your weight is on the back of your bike, and it's the front wheel that moves you around. And if you ride your bike well and you are fit well, you should have your body weight on the front of the bike holding that front wheel down, and, you know, your back and your back end are keeping that disc down. So I will always ride a disc if the course allows it.
Wow. So miles 70, 80, 90, and 100, how are these going for you? Did you see any flats, wrecks, mechanicals, anything significant here?
Yeah, actually, I don't know who it was, but there was a pro that came around me around mile 85, I think, right? It was right past the turnaround. Right before the turnaround, he came around me. So it would have been mile 85. The turnaround's around 90 or something like that. And right past, there's an area of special needs, which, so I guess it must have been around mile 100, I guess. At any rate, there was an ambulance coming towards us on our side of the road in the shoulder. So that's always alarming. And then I came up, you could see for a very long distance. Then I came up on this same pro man was on the ground. There was a couple of age groupers on the ground. He looked hurt. I didn't quite understand what was going on. Of course, I'm going, 28, 29 miles an hour at this point. So I steered really, really clear of it. Lots of people were slowing down to look to see what was going on. And I later heard that he was passing a couple of those age groupers and hit a manhole there. And I don't quite understand how somebody, I wasn't there. All I know is that sounds like the guy hit the manhole. His bike came out under him, and he took out the two age groupers that were on the ground with him. And everybody was out for the day is what I heard. Wow. But that's all hearsay. I didn't see anything anywhere. And I don't remember a manhole when I went by. I was more concerned about an ambulance coming towards me as I was hurling down the road at 30 miles an hour. And, people on the ground, that always shakes you up a little bit mentally.
Right.
So
Man.
that was the only thing I saw. I did see a bunch of flat tires the first lap. I was a little bit confused by that because we're allowed to ride in the road. And, there's typically no debris in the road. So, yeah, besides that, I didn't see anything else.
Okay. So as you're getting closer to T2, how are you feeling? Any cramping, GI issues, or chafing going into T2?
No, I'm really excited. I felt really good about the bike. The 510 bike split had me really excited. I was really dead on exactly where we wanted it to be. My watts were dead on exactly where I wanted to be. And I was pretty excited about how good I felt with the extra watts that we chose for this race. And I was pretty excited about seeing where I finished off the bike and how getting out and getting that run done. And I really liked the run in Arizona. So yeah, I felt fantastic.
Okay. So at Kona, you wanted 160 normalized power. Did you want to have like 165, 170 here? Is that how much more you added?
Well, we were actually shooting for that 160 again, but that is 10 watts higher than what I've done on this course in the past.
Okay.
So I think I ended up with like 157.
Do you feel like you left even more on the table?
Yeah. I'm pretty excited about how I've come out of this year with my biking, and I feel really confident in there being a lot more in that bucket.
Wow. So going into the T2 here, you're in here less than 2 minutes, and then you're out on the run. How does T2 go for you in the first few miles of the run?
The volunteer in T2 was amazing. First off, she was super funny, and she just, every time I said something to her, she said something funny to me, and, your brain's not working. So I felt like I was like laughing at her delayed. At one point, I remember saying to her, "You're really funny." And she says, "Yeah, I've been told that before." So that was kind of funny. But she had my socks on my feet before I even knew that I needed to put socks on my feet. And I had a hat and gloves and all kinds of stuff in that bag because you never know in Arizona. And she was giving me a hard time about how cold I thought it was going to be. And I thought that was funny. And so she was pretty funny. Just on my way out, she was just, I don't know, she cracked me up. She was like, "Hey, go out there and crush this thing." And I was like, "I'm on it." So I think that she overheard, she actually ran with me for a little way. And I think she overheard one of my friends telling me that I was in first. So I think she was kind of excited about that too. She was like, "I got to help a rock star," or something. I don't know. There's so much stuff going on in your head, but she was really awesome, and transition went really well and fast. So I was pretty happy about that.
Wow. So the run course is kind of unique because you're running on both sides of the river, and it starts off with a nice out and back on mile 1 and 2. How does this go for you?
Fantastic. I felt really good. Of course, coming back to being off in the water half an hour after all the people I normally start with. So, it's motivating and kind of fun when you're running and I'm just passing so many people. There's people walking at this point. There's people out there that are doing their first Ironmans. There's a lot of people cheering you on. It's actually not so lonely. It's funny when you start up with the front and you get out into these, this course, usually the first lap, it's kind of lonely, but this time I had people that were actually on their second lap. I had the pro men coming around, some of the pro women. I beat a couple pro women on my run. And so I had some pro women around me that it was kind of fun to run with them. They were on their second lap. I saw Heather coming back. She was coming back from mile 2. I was heading out. I'm sure she was on her second lap. There were a lot of age groupers out there kind of cheering you on. And so it was kind of fun. I was kind of like, wow, it's but the aid stations were really, really crowded. Normally for the first lap, they're not. So they were a lot more crowded than I expected. I think just because of my experience in the past. But yeah, the run went really well. I felt fantastic. And right around mile 5, like we were talking about, I had to, I heard about the gal, Rochelle. She was running faster, so I had to run faster. So that hurt for a little while, trying to drop those miles down. I was kind of glad when she finished. I was like, how much longer does she have before she's finished? Because, when her pavement ended, I still had 4 more miles to try to maybe make something happen if she ended up ahead of me. So yeah, the run was a lot of fun. I think at one point she took my lead down to like 5 minutes, and that was as low as it got. And I told her on the podium, and she told me as well, we both pretty much knew first and second were getting a slot to Kona, and we were both pretty okay with first or second. So she knew third was like 45 minutes behind her. So at one point she told me, at least on the podium, that she pretty much expected she wasn't going to catch me, but she knew third, if she just played her cards right, third wasn't coming for her. So it kind of took a lot of pressure off of her. And it's funny because right around mile 22-ish, 23-ish, I didn't have a whole lot of, like I said, she was like 4 miles ahead of me, but around 22, 23, I pretty much knew I was going to be, as long as I kept the pace. And that took some pressure off too, and made the end of the race fun for me as well. And she was saying that it was fun for her as well. She was having some issues herself. So yeah, it was kind of nice.
Well, good. So emotionally, this seems like it was a lot better than Kona on a few different levels. Is that right?
Yeah, on a lot of levels. Once the gun went off, a lot of the stress and anxiety disappeared, but also, to get out of the water in first and to come off the bike in first and then to be running in first, and to be ahead, it just takes a lot of stress and pressure off of you. I think, you still have to race, well and get it done, but it's a different
what?
It's a different feeling. It's a different intensity, I suppose is the right word. My main goal at Arizona is to get a slot to Kona. And so knowing that goal was going to be achieved, earlier in the run than years past, kind of gives you energy and motivation. You're just like, this is going great, and I'm going to finish this race, and I'm going to finish it well, and I'm going to feel great. And yeah, so.
Wow. Going into, say, miles 18 through 25, you realize that you're making up ground. You know that you're almost getting your first place position that you want, but you don't know if it's really there or not because of where things are with the rolling start and the delay. How is this going for you?
Well, like I said, really well. I felt great. The temperatures warmed up on the run, which I like. I had no issues. I had no body issues. I had a little bit of hip discomfort, and I always do. And I knew that I ran pretty hard the first 13 miles, and I was slowing down. But I also knew that I had the buffer to slow down, and I think that just kind of kept me going. I saw my coach at like mile 25, and I asked him, can I walk the finish line? Because I've never been able to walk a finish line at an Ironman. I've actually never heard them say my name because, you're just trying to get to the finish line and you're racing. And I've never been able to high five or any of those things. And I really wanted that experience. And he was like, yeah, but get to the carpet. So I ran up around the corner to the carpet, and I slowed down and kind of jogged. And then just right before the finish line was able to walk across and hear Mike Riley. And that was pretty awesome, considering this is my 10th Ironman, and it's the first time I've heard that man call me an Ironman, at the time. I've heard it in videos, but so it was pretty emotional and pretty exciting. And I just felt like it was an exclamation point to the year.
Wow. Well, I know you've been on the show a few times, and I've already gotten some awesome information from you from your experience and your perspective on races. So what did you experience from this race that you'd like to pass on people who haven't done this race before?
I think that Ironman Arizona is one of the best first-time Ironman venues out there. The way they have the course set up offers a massive amount of volunteer and spectator opportunities. And I think as, the people that get us to the start line, all those people that support us, it's kind of a boring day to be out doing Ironman for those people. It's like, well, we'll see Dad in 7 hours, or we'll see Dad in, 6.5, whatever hours. Whereas this venue, you can see everybody get in the water. You see everybody get out of the water. You see everybody leave bike transition. Then you can see them on the bike if you stand in the right place 6 times. And, then you have bike transition, and then you have the run, and you can stay in one place on this run course and see somebody, I think it's 8 times. So it's a really great spectator course. It's a really great course for support. I like the run. There's no place on the run that there aren't people cheering you on. I mean, even the furthest points out on the hill, there's people everywhere, and all the aid stations do really fun things. There were unicorns at one aid station. There were hula girls. I can't even tell you, all the aid stations play music. It really is very fun, and it's way different than Kona as well, whereas you're out in the middle of nowhere and you just feel like, this barren lava land of heat and misery. So I think that Ironman Arizona is a really fun course. I think it's a fairly fast course. And I think that Tempe Town Lake and running around the lake is absolutely stunning. So.
Wow. So to kind of wrap up here, we covered a lot. Do you have anything else you want to add about your race?
I just want to say thanks to all the people that, get me to these events, get me to these events healthy. All the people out there that support me. It's kind of goofy to say something like all my fans, but there's so many people out there that just, I don't know, support me unconditionally, and it drives me, it motivates me. I think about these people, and I just love our community. I think I've said this before. It just inspires me to keep going. It motivates me to help people, motivates me to be a better coach. And I just think we have a really amazing sport. So,
wow.
And thank you, Terry, for, doing these interviews and having me on again.
Well, you're welcome. I'm glad I could always give back to you and learn more about your experience. I mean, it's kind of like why I like doing this. It's pretty fun to be like a booked other people in a sense. I love it. So I know you're doing Kona next year. What are you doing in between then?
You asking me my race schedule?
Yeah, for next year.
So I am not racing again until Lava Man. I'm actually going to be in New York for New Year's Eve, and I'm doing a 5K there, and I'm super excited about it because it's just a big fun run, and the idea of doing a fun run just has me super giggly. But Lava Man in March, April, I'll be back here on the island for that. I'll be back here for the 70.3 in June here. I'm headed to the Dolomites in June in Italy for a bike camp. I'm going to be biking with the Cycling House in February. That's a camp that I put on through Peak, my coaching business, every year with the guys in Tucson. And I have Nice 70.3 World Championships, and I've got Kona. I've signed up for Arizona again, Ironman. And I'm probably going to find one more 70.3, but I'm kind of throwing darts at a dartboard right now on which one it's going to be. It's probably going to be something in July.
Oh, wow. So you got into both world championships for next year again.
I am in both world championships, and I've cut my schedule down a lot this year. I raced 8 times this year. I'm not going to race more than probably 5 this coming season.
So what is Lava Man?
It's an Olympic distance triathlon held here on the Big Island. and where I'm at right now. And it's probably one of the most fun, fantastic Olympic distance events that I've ever done. It's just Hawaii, a great party. It's a great first timer event. The area is beautiful. We swim in an amazing bay here, and I've been doing this race since 2007, and the gal that runs the race, Jerry's just amazing. She does a lot for the community, a lot for the school age kids here, which I think is phenomenal. And it's a big team and training event as well. So yeah, I think I want to say like 1,500 people do this Olympic distance event here. Yeah, pretty exciting.
So I already know how people can follow you, but how can people follow you?
So you can follow me on Facebook at Rebecca McKee or Rebecca McKee. You can follow my coaching page at Peak Center, Alaska. You can find me on Instagram at Coach Rebecca McKee, and also Rebecca McKee on Instagram.
Nice. So I already know what races are on your bucket list and all that fun stuff, and I already know what your definition of a perfect race is. So the last question of the episode is, who would you want me to have on here that I haven't had on here yet?
Well, I got to tell you, you've had so many people that you might have actually already talked to people that that I would recommend. But I think it would be kind of fun and exciting to talk to a couple of coaches, maybe my coach, Cliff English, or, some of those bigger name coaches out there that aren't racing, but their perspective of races and athletes. And also, I don't know if you've had a chance to maybe talk with Leanda Cave, but I think she's doing some pretty amazing things now in her retirement with the women that she's working with too. So
what do you mean?
She started one of those teams, and it's I don't want to say the wrong names or something, but I think it's a team focused on women and getting women into our sport. And I think that's pretty impressive.
Wow.
Might want to double check that.
So kind of like do like a coach series.
Yeah, I think that'd be kind of neat. I mean, I definitely would come back on and talk to you as a coach and, things like that. But, it's always interesting to see all the forums like talking about Lionel Sanders when, how his race went in Kona. It'd be interesting to see like what 5 coaches thought of that and, those types of things.
That'd be pretty interesting. Have one central focal point with 5-10 people talking about the same thing.
Right.
Wow. Well, Rebecca, it's been great, and I've enjoyed this, and I look forward to following you at Lava Man and next year at your Double World Championship again.
Well, thanks so much, Terry.
You're welcome. You have a good day, and we'll talk soon, okay?
Okay.
Thanks for tuning in today. I hope you were able to learn something from today's episode. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to leave a review on iTunes or share it with a friend. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you'd like to see pictures from this athlete's race, learn more about who I am, what I'm doing, or be on the show yourself to share your story, check out my website at CoachTerryWilson.com. Until next time, continue the pursuit.